This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. Hello everyone, Andy Pickering here, and we have a very good show for you today. But before we get into it, need to shout out our new sponsor, Nexo. Yes indeed, are you ready to grow your wealth with the world's leading digital assets institution, Nexo? Well, you should be ready, because you can earn up to 12% on your digital assets with Nexo's high yield savings account. That's right. So treat yourself, treat your crypto, and treat your fiat with the industry's best crypto and fiat services, which include compounding interest paid out daily. There are 18 available cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, various stablecoins, and many more. And 3 fiat currencies are accepted, the euro, the pound, and USD. And Nexo has up to $375 million worth of insurance across all custodial assets. Top-ups and withdrawals are available at any time, and there are 0 fees for using the Nexo Earn Suite. So, are you ready to start earning? Of course you are. Simply go to nexo.io, and of course that is spelt NEXO.io. And now it's on with the show. My guest today is Dean Tribble. Dean is CEO of Agoric, a JavaScript-native smart contract platform designed to help build out the decentralized future. And Dean is a former principal architect at Microsoft Technology. And Dean, you have quite a long career working to help lay out the foundations for distributed computing. Welcome to the show, Dean.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it is a pleasure. And well, as I kind of mentioned, Dean, you do have a long career, strong background leading various software projects. And I mentioned that you were a principal architect at Microsoft some time ago, I believe. But yeah, look, let's start the show. If you could please just introduce yourself and just give us a little bit of your story leading up to Agoric.
Sure. As you noted, it's a longer story than I might like to think. I first worked actually with my chief scientist here at Agoric, Mark Miller, at Xerox PARC back in the 80s on researching large-scale secure distributed system technology. This was long before blockchain. This was before internet. This was how do you make secure communication between computers and secure cooperation. That led on Markham's side to the Agoric Open Systems papers, which sort of laid out software agents building and participating in markets. And I ended up working on the first production smart contract back in 1989. And so this was really, always fascinated by how can software help humans cooperate better? How can they give us more leverage to accomplish our goals? And as I said, especially, how can it help people cooperate better so we end up with a more cooperative world? We have since taken that in a bunch of different directions for doing large-scale e-commerce and bringing out other disruptive technologies to the world. So I worked on brokerage information systems for Schwab, electronic checks for IBM. We had a project in the 90s to do smart contracts for doing software computer resource allocation inside of SunLabs. And then went to Microsoft, where worked on secure email and exchange, and then a high performance secure operating system based on asynchronous messaging, of which, many of the ideas that we had been working on up till then were built into that Midori operating system. And we've leveraged many of those ideas inside of what we're building here at Agoric. 2 more steps. And then after I went to to start an electronic payments business. This is electronic checks, now acquired by Deluxe. This is a multi-billion-dollar payment instrument. And that was deep in the financial world, integrating with banks. And then finally came back to some of my roots from the early cypherpunks days to do a lot of that kind of technology, a lot of smart contract technology, secure component, rapid development technology on top of blockchain. And that brought us to Agoric.
Fantastic. And well, Dean, you talked about how you, I guess for many years have worked with software and technology, looking for ways to, I guess, deploy technology in order to help humans cooperate better, right?
Yep.
And that is, in some ways, that's a really nice way of describing blockchain, right? So I'm curious, as someone who has worked in this field for, pre-blockchain, shall we say? What were your first impressions when, did you read, I guess, the Bitcoin white paper fairly early on? And, could you see the potential there immediately, or did it take you some time? What was your kind of journey into blockchain?
That's interesting. So, yes, there's interesting, interesting question. So we were doing smart contract before blockchain, where that's really software enforcing the terms and orchestrating the terms of a contract-like arrangement between third parties. So that means, eBay, PayPal, Airbnb, Uber, Lyft, all of those things, Amazon, high frequency trading, those are all things where there's a trusted third party running software to enforce the terms of agreement between, people outside of that organization. And so that's got, multi-trillion-dollar market cap in terms of all of the stuff that smart contracts enables before blockchain. The problem with those, or rather the limitation with those, is the trusted third party. Now, I had done this first production smart contract, with lots of other people, in 1989, before Nick Szabo, characterized the term. He'd been working on these ideas, but when we finally all got together, and this is part of the old cypherpunks world, he could point at that and go, that's a smart contract. Here's what's important about it. Here's why that's interesting. Here's why we should do more of that, right? And so he really, got that term to carry the meaning that it has today. And that all was about these trusted third parties implementing and enforcing these contracts. What blockchain brings, but it's only that we figured this out in retrospect, right? What blockchain brings is high integrity execution, right? Multiple machines in different jurisdictions, all checking up on each other's work, voting to agree on what happened, right? And that, as a result, can eliminate the trusted third party of that pre-blockchain world required, which means I can have, non-custodial trades through a smart contract that's obeying, that's providing the right fees and interest rates and commissions and whatever all else it is, without having to worry about, is someone in a back room doing special sneaky dealing, or are they going to change how it all works tomorrow, and that sort of thing. Okay. So when Bitcoin came out, I was deep in the world of building the secure operating system, so very busy, and then in the world of traditional banking financial stuff. So that was on the one hand. And on the other hand, I looked at Bitcoin and what was espoused about it of, anonymity, non-traceability, all these kinds of things, it didn't actually have, right? It's really slow. It's a long-term audit of every transaction that ever happened. So it's in much stronger auditability than other things had. And so I did not, so it looked like it would do something, but it wasn't all the things that people were claiming that they wanted about a cryptocurrency, right? It wasn't fast, so it's a digital system and yet slow as molasses. It wasn't anonymous, all these things, right? But it was interesting. So I just sort of followed it from a distance, but had to keep sort of clear, because I was deep in the very conservative, much more conservative at the time, banking world, where, when you're trying to do innovation, and we were, then, looking dodgy when you're trying to do innovation is a good way to just stop, just go do something else, right? So I had to keep clear. So it wasn't until I really got back into this world that I could deep dive in and realize all of the value that that real consensus among a broadly distributed set of machines gives you, and it's just enormous. And so that ramped up. My excitement really ramped up in as late as, I was paying attention in 2015, but really it was as late as 2018 before I internalized, or 2017, before I internalized what this could do for smart contracts and for decentralized cooperation.
Oh, fantastic stuff, Dean. And yeah, I mean, you're right. Nick Szabo, I guess, was the first person to kind of, use the term smart contract to, describe the capabilities of what we really know as smart contract platforms today, which obviously is what you guys are building at Agoric. So I guess this is probably a good time, Dean, to begin to understand a little bit about Agoric. So if we rewind to 2018, and I guess you have now seen the light, perhaps you're probably familiar by now with the capabilities of Ethereum and what that can do that Bitcoin couldn't. And I love the term slow as molasses, which is probably a good way of describing confirmation on Bitcoin. Certainly, but that's the price you pay for decentralization and censorship resistance and all that other good stuff. But yeah, so take us away. You're in 2018, and you've suddenly found a new and exciting way to deploy, I guess, censorship resistant smart contracts, right?
That's right. Well, so in 2017, so Agoric was founded in 2018. In 2017, there were all these breaches, right? And security experts deploying smart contracts, and they were losing tens of millions of dollars in minutes with no recourse, right? And so that was a security problem. I was, again, only very remotely paying attention to this stuff. But the Foresight Institute pulled together a panel that included Zuko from Zcash, Arthur Brightman from Tezos, Mark Miller, our chief scientist, Jorge from Gravity, and Brian Warner, who at the time had just finished a security review, participating in a security review for Ethereum. And they had a panel because these people knew that Mark Miller and I had worked on this other way of doing security called object capabilities or object-based security that was better for smart contracts because we've been doing smart contracts not in crypto. So they pulled this panel together to go, could your way of doing things out in mainstream get together with crypto and actually work together? And there was an amusing accident of history where that panel ended up happening right in the middle of Tezos's fundraise. So sort of from the beginning of when Arthur started talking to the end of when Arthur started talking, their value probably went up by $20 million, right? It was this crazy, crazy time in 2017. So, that really underscored that the value here matters. And one of the main things that I got out of it, there were two things. One is, yes, our model of how to approach composition and rapid development and what is now called DeFi Legos and security actually would make a difference, actually would help solve some of the problems that people were facing in these bugs with, at that time, the parity bug and the DAO bug and all those kinds of things, of which, billions of dollars lost, right? And that the value of security was appreciated very differently in the crypto universe, right? In the mainstream world, you do best practices because if you innovate and you get it wrong, it's your fault. Whereas if you do best practices and get it wrong, well, you'll do better next time. So there's not a lot of incentive for innovation in, radical innovation in security. They can't even take techniques from secure operating systems and bring them over to traditional operating systems because that's too new, right? Whereas in blockchain, if you don't innovate and you do the same old, and you get it wrong, dude, you just lost $150 million, right? And you're not getting it back, right? And apologies are not going to solve the problem. And so there's real value in actual security, and people really understand that innovation was required. And so that was the opportunity for us to be able to take all this technology that we built in various different production systems and various different applications, but bring it into the world of blockchain, bring it into the world to apply it to smart contracts, so that we could have actual secure smart contracts. Okay, that's security is not the end goal. Security means we can more rapidly build things, and security by default means that more engineers can more rapidly innovate in a way that results in safe systems. And that's really the goal is build, our mantra, build fast, earn fast, right? So it's enable rapid development of safe components you can deploy out into the world and make money with. And so that was the genesis of Agoric. And so Zuko, who was one of the people there, helped get us our initial investment. Electric Coin Company invested in us, so they'll be able to leverage our model remotely from other chains. Naval invested in us, Polychain invested in us. Those were our three initial seed investors, helped get us off the ground. And then Mark Miller joined, me and Mark Miller started this thing. Brian Warner, who was on that committee, joined us as our lead engineer, and we got an economist to help with us and a few others on board. And that was the launch of Agoric.
Good stuff, Dean. And look, fantastic to have the backing of the likes of Zuko and Naval. Obviously, some heavyweight blockchain investors there. I suppose, even so, though, I wasn't very familiar with Agoric, and I imagine that will be true for many listeners, Dean. So I think it would be useful if you kind of place, describe how you see Agoric as fitting within the wider blockchain ecosystem. Are you a competitor to other smart contract platforms? Are you agnostic? Or is the idea that everyone works together in a kind of a cross-chain environment? Just love to see, and are there specific use cases that you guys are targeting? That sort of thing. I just want to understand, where Agoric sits.
Absolutely. So a lot of people have not heard of us yet because our blockchain is not yet a public blockchain. It will be. And so we're sort of just pre the big ramp up out to there. But Agoric will be deploying a public blockchain. The key difference is that it is designed to be accessible to a much broader range of developers, right? So we have a hardened version of JavaScript. So instead of the 10,000 developers that know how to program Solidity, which, Ethereum has done great stuff. It's, crucial. It's the thing that launched a lot of the world of extensible smart contracts and so forth. But it has a lot of security hazards. It's not programmable by very many people. It's slow, it's expensive, all those kinds of things. The fundamental thing that we bring is that programmability. So in the same way that React.js enabled JavaScript developers to rapidly produce new, interesting, innovative, responsive applications for, that is now the modern world of interactive applications on the web, React, Vue, Angular, those component frameworks, we get to do the same thing for DeFi, NFTs, and so forth, for programmability of smart contracts, and especially, the next generation of DeFi. So we will be approachable by 10 million developers. Obviously, we have to reach them, but it's a language they already understand. And there's a lot of them that, are in the fintech world. They already know financial stuff. They're already entrepreneurial. They've looked at blockchain because it's kind of this cool, interesting thing. And they go, yeah, these tools aren't there yet. Let me know when when you've got real development environments. And we get to start already having those. We get to start already having something that they can program. We get to start with a model that they already understand that follows the same kind of design principles they use for building applications now, out in the rest of the mainstream economy. And so we will be a blockchain that is the bridge from the current cryptoverse out to the programmability of the rest of the financial and application economy. So now several pieces of our technology are either inspired or in use in other blockchains. So, or other systems, right? Our hardened JavaScript is being used in Salesforce, which is not blockchain, obviously, but it's a big business thing for their extensibility point. But it'll also be in the next generation wallet for MetaMask. So the MetaMask team was here last week, well, maybe a few weeks ago by the time people hear this, but where they spent all week with us, where we were doing security review of our hardened JavaScript for use in the extensibility of the MetaMask wallet. Similarly, it's part of the Cosmos.js, which is the library in the Cosmos ecosystem to do wallet and chain access. So, and in the Cosmos ecosystem, the inter-blockchain communication protocol, the interop stuff, that descends from some of our networking work that we did prior to Agorics. So our technologies are in various surprising pieces of the ecosystem, but the chain will be coming out later this year. And at that point, developers, especially from outside or that have been circling blockchain, but haven't been able to quite get started, now suddenly they can get started with familiar tools, with familiar development practices and development processes in a familiar language, in an environment that lets them much more rapidly develop than you can develop in current systems.
And that sounds fantastic, Dean. But the problem, I suppose, is, a lot of new blockchain projects, they start and they have a grand vision, as you do, and you have I suppose it sounds like you have a plan to attract both developers and users, but that's often harder than it sounds, right? So are you confident that just because you create all these new tools that you say developers will be familiar with, what kind of incentives, I suppose, are there for attracting, developers? Because they've got to build, it's fine to launch a new blockchain, but if you don't have developers and users, it's the chicken and egg problem. I think you know what I'm saying.
Yes. Right. Okay. So, first off, we have done individually, several of the founders at prior environments have successfully deployed interesting new disruptive technologies. Completely appreciate the difficulty of that, and including getting developers on board to a new library or framework. So there's both what we do for a go-to-market, and then there are the incentives. So we have a bounty program. We have pieces, that we've already carved off, that we've got bounties and we've got people that have applied for them. We will be rolling out new bounties, if not weekly, then fairly frequently, over the next, probably next year, right? Continuing out past our mainnet. And so we absolutely believe in seeding and getting people started and building components that they can use. Now, when we roll out, so let me say a little bit about the component model, because that's important, and that ties into this bounties and to how we go to market. JavaScript was in browsers long before React or Vue or Angular, and experts could do somewhat interactive systems that were still better than HTML pages. But when this system for having isolated components that I could grab and install and build upon, so I could, take a slideshow, take the Stripe integration, slap them together and have my application that could sell my art, right? Even though I'm not able to build a slideshow or a Stripe integration myself, that ability to grab components and plug them together and use them means that now with these frameworks, a beginner with a few months programming experience can do a better, more responsive, fancier UI than an expert could 10 years ago, right? We do this, and that's because React gives you this framework, or Vue gives you this framework with rules for how to put things together so that they can easily render their applications, so they know how to do styles, all these things where it supports the goals of building better UI. We do the same kind of framework for DeFi components. So you can grab an auction, even though you couldn't build it yourself. And you could grab the payment thing that can convert other currencies, plug them together to do your auction for your NFTs. And now you've got a new application that nobody else has, that you were able to do not by copying other people's code and trying to muck with it without breaking it, but rather by installing a component that you parameterize and plug together. And so that's the build fast part of the system. The earn fast is giving a place to deploy those that actually has an economy going. And so our economy will have native stable local currency. So a maker style thing, but that's integrated with the overall chain. So you get, one stable local currency. It's what you pay for system resources. It's what you pay gas fees, execution fees with. And it's just, stable. And so you can price things in it. You can compare, the hedging using Joe's application versus buying insurance in Mary's application. And so that makes it, that sort of, stable local currency is kind of the grease that makes businesses be able to deploy and thrive more easily. So we have several of these market institutions. What that means is when we launch connected to other chains and other assets. So we're not launching in a vacuum like people had to do even as late as 6 months ago. Now we can launch connected to Atoms on Cosmos, connected to over the Gravity Bridge to Ethereum assets and so forth. And so we can use liquidity tokens we can use liquidity rewards to attract capital to the system, to attract money to the system, to participate in our AMM and in our loan program, our loan application and so forth, that are part of the economy. But all those contracts we built using the same components that we want other people to be able to use. So if you're rolling out a new loan application, you can grab the same voting component that is used to manage the chain and just say, but I want to use that parameterized by my liquidity token. And I'm going to grab that other thing over there for a liquidation component, plug them together. And now I can focus on my business of a new loan service without having to do special liquidation, without having to do the governance stuff. And instead I get to use a battle tested system that's already, got security reviews. It's already got a lot of experience. People know how to use it. It's integrated with multiple UIs, and I can plug that together quickly to produce a new application and then deploy it into the same environment that already has capital in it. So that's part of the big, the go-to-market engine is, money can come for the direct liquidity rewards of that. And then there are direct incentives to developers to produce components that are available for reuse. And then obviously to deploy a business that can live in that world of additional capital that has been incentivized. So we'll have, liquidity rewards for capital. We will have bounties for developers. And of course, we will have lots of components for developers to be able to build with, to give them that leg up, to give them shoulders to stand on, so they can focus on their particular applications. Now, that model has worked well, and there's well-trodden marketing and growth, patterns for the traditional programmer market in JavaScript. So a way to think about us in terms of growing out into the rest of the world is Node.js for DeFi, right? Node.js took over, software as a service, and people use it a lot for software as a service or rapid service deployment, by being easy for developers to pick up, being easy for them to grab components to be able to build their application and go from there. And so we will use a lot of the same techniques that have worked for React, for Node, for Vue, et cetera, to grow out in the JavaScript developer communities in a way that's familiar to them and that they understand. So that'll be complementary with the bounty programs and the liquidity reward programs and so forth to incentivize developers to get busy building and deploying applications.
Yeah, good stuff, Dean. And so if that's the case then, and all these different building blocks, which I guess are composable, right? So everything can essentially, interact with each other. And, another way of talking about this, I guess, is interoperability, right? And I know you've talked about, I think I've got a quote here where you said that interoperability is a critical diplomatic tool, and interoperability between blockchains creates social bridges between communities. And the key to diplomacy is to have open communication. So, I mean, that's just, I love that, because it's just simple, nice language that people can understand what's kind of a technical concept. But yeah, just give us the context there and maybe extrapolate it out into the future. What does that kind of, I guess, multi-chain interoperable world of blockchain look like in 5 years' time, 10 years' time?
Right. So first, let me start a month ago. Or 2 months ago, IBC went live on the Cosmos Hub. And that was an amazing change that, a small number of people noticed, but that sort of changes the shape of the landscape. A couple of weeks ago, Osmosis went live, which is a DEX, experimental DEX for rapidly evolving how an AMM works in the Cosmos ecosystem. The fundamental thing is it was the first chain that went live connected to other chains. And it's not just a layer 2, it's a sovereign chain with its own token, its own policies and so forth. But it was getting, for no one having heard of it, $10 million a day of capital coming across the IBC bridges from multiple other chains, right? And that's been happening for days and days and days, where gradually people are putting more liquidity and more money in this AMM to be able to gain rewards in the AMM and to be able to participate in this interesting experiment. Now, the important thing is it launched not in a vacuum, right? It launched with interoperability connections to existing chains and to existing asset pools. We'll get to do the same thing, but again, with higher scale, because we'll have more kinds of activities for people to participate in, and some of these wheels will be well greased so people understand how it works. So from a month ago going forward, now chains can launch connected to the rest of the world, connected to billions of dollars in assets on other chains, so that if they have a value prop that is distinguishing, that is unique to their chain, they don't have to fight to get assets. They can just, make it available and incentivize people to bring their capital over. It's, liquidity is not just a good idea. It's a property of this stuff can move very quickly to something that's actually of value to people. And so that's a big difference. The other thing is that with the combination of interoperability and VM chains, right? For some applications, doesn't make sense to have their own chains, right? People occasionally talk about millions of chains in the Cosmos ecosystem. That's, to me, not the goal, right? The goal is millions of applications for people to do. And some of those might require some unique property that motivates having them be a new chain, right? For example, proof of location has to be part of the overall consensus thing. A novel way of doing oracles might be integrated in with how they do validation, right? But someone who's just got a new lending instrument, there's a good chance they could just build it and deploy on Agoric and have that be as valuable and as profitable, and yet much, much faster to market. And so I think there will be a mix of chains that have different performance and scaling and security characteristics or unique novel features that are all possible because they can bridge to other chains that provide a different profile, right? I use the same credit card for gaming, which doesn't have the same security requirements as it does when I go to my brokerage and want to buy stocks, right? And yet those two systems are integrated and can work with each other, but they certainly aren't going to run on hardware that has the same kind of requirements, either performance or security wise. And I want to be able to live in a world that has a mix of those. And so 5 years from now, yes, I think there's a wide variety of chains with a wide variety of characteristics. I think an astonishing number of them will be running smart contracts written in JavaScript using the Agoric infrastructure and some element of the Agoric ecosystem and chain, simply because, there's someone has a rule, right? If it's programmable, it'll be programmable in JavaScript, right? And it's so much easier to use in JavaScript to write smart contracts that will have legs once it gets started. I mean, we've seen, JavaScript gets this kind of, with a nice component model, gets an exponential ramp of developers. I think that there'll be a lot of that going on up there. And everyone can view every other chain as a layer 2 to themselves, right? Is Cosmos a layer 2 to Ethereum, or is Ethereum an asset pool that acts as a layer 2 to Cosmos? The answer is, depends where you stand. They're both really valuable. And from our perspective, going out to the mainstream market requires all of these different systems to be available, because we need a lot of these ideas to be evolved and explored quickly. But it really requires enabling the developers out in the rest of the ecosystem to be able to program smart contracts as well. And that's the big thing we bring to the table.
Outstanding, Dean. I enjoyed that very much. Well, look, as we start to finish off this part of the podcast, and then, look, I'm very excited to do the Crypto Conversation hot take round with you today, because I'm sure you're going to have some very interesting things to say. But just to finish off on Agoric, I think it would be useful. You kind of mentioned it just in passing, but so there's two different tokens, as I understand it, that run in the I guess Agoric ecosystem or economy, right? So there's the run, which is run stablecoin, right? And then there's BLD, is that build BLD staking token. So maybe just as we finish off this part of the podcast, just talk about those two tokens and how they support the ecosystem.
Absolutely. So run is, as I said, the grease that makes the economy work. It is so much simpler. I mean, you can clearly run a business in a world of volatile assets that are all, like we're trading in stocks. But if you think of execution time as like rent or postage for a business, it's like you're paying your postage bill with Apple shares. You can do it. It clearly works. It's just not great from how to be able to rapidly focus on what's really your business, which, paying for postage is not an important part of your business, right? And so having a native stablecoin really helps simplify what it takes for a new business to be able to deploy, and especially what it takes for a mainstream business to understand what the heck is going on, right? They can budget their digital postage the same as they budget their paper postage. And, and the fact that it's stable price and they can compare month to month helps keep keeps pressure down on the price, right? And so the reason why I bring that up is one of the ingredients is smart contracts pay gas in stablecoin, right? We're paying postage in a local currency, so I can compare the price of execution today versus the price of execution tomorrow or the next day, or I can compare executing here versus using your service over there, right? And so run is used for payments, it's used for pricing, it's used for comparison, it's used for all of the network services and so forth. And, we'll be connected with IBC. People could take it off there and use it for a stable currency in the rest of in other crypto ecosystems, the extended Cosmos ecosystem, or, out over to Celo or whatever. Now, our goal is not to be the big, stable coin. Our goal is to have a stable local currency. It's like when you travel to a new area of the globe, you convert to some of the local currency and use it in the local markets, and you buy your stuff and you take them home, right? Same kind of thing for interoperability. If you're going to bring assets over to our chain, convert to the local currency, buy things in the local currency, take your assets home, or take assets from here and take them across to your built in JavaScript, which is really easy to build new fungible tokens or NFTs, and take them across these interoperability bridges to other chains, or use them inside of other contracts on our system. So that's run, is just, grease to make an economy run. It's also what most of the rewards, once the economy is up and running, most of the rewards will be paid in run, right? The fees from run, the fees from exchange, the fees from other network services, they all accumulate so that the value of the token can scale with the size of the economy. One of the things that's critical in proof of stake systems is that the value of the network, the token value of the network, grow with the size of the economy, so it continues to provide staking security to the larger and larger economy. Well, to make that happen, we understand how we make that happen with the architecture of our system, so that more activity, more economic activity results in value being driven to the token, and so hopefully to the staking token. So hopefully the network value rises to continue to provide staking security. Okay. So the staking token is build, right? How do we need all of the people, the investors, the people, the validators, the engineers creating these initial systems. They are building this new economy. They're building this new world. And I wanted something that would be front and center, saying we're focused on the builders. We're focused on the people that are going to build the next generation economy. That's the next step, is getting, developers being able to rapidly produce stuff. And so we called our staking token build to have that be, front and center of our reminder of how important that focus is. And so that provides staking and governance primarily, right? So staking and staking rewards and governance.
Very good.
And it is not intended as a medium of exchange. For a good medium of exchange, you'd like its value to be the same day over day. And so the nice thing about that split of, run being the medium of exchange and the unit of account is that it allows us to not, to not worry about what build is. Build is really the foundation for that economy, the capital on which it's built.
Got it. Thank you, Dean. And look, just before we go to the break, just tell people, I guess, when the deployment date is of, I guess, mainnet.
So
moving target.
We're getting all our ducks in a row right now. We will have, validators starting to run elements of the network even as soon as this month or early next month. That's not the deployment, right? That's not the real, that starts various things and lets us, get governance in place and that kind of thing. The real target of the deployment is end of Q3, where that will have our treasury and AMM connected with IBC out into the greater world, that we can start, getting new instances of the smart contracts that are already there and will be well vetted at the time, so people can instantiate those and trade with them. It will be, so that's phase one, and that's end of Q3. After that, it will for a while be a governance decision to allow new contracts on. So we all have some set, like, here's an NFT contract that you can take and instantiate with all your parameters in order to make your NFT. And so you can sell your NFT on our system, but you can't add a new NFT contract without going through governance. That will happen for a while as things get stabilized, as more adversarial test nets are run, and we get through more security reviews, and we do various things to make sure the currency is well integrated and everything is stable and so forth. And then gradually we will loosen that to where we end up going to complete permissionless, so anyone can deploy new smart contracts and operate connected to any network and that sort of thing.
Brilliant.
All right. Q4 or Q1 of next year, but the goal, get to treasury end of Q3 is the mission.
And look, that is coming up close. All right, let's go to a very quick break, Dean, and then we'll come back and we'll finish off with the crypto conversation hot take round.
Grow your wealth with the world's leading digital assets institution, Nexo. Earn up to 12% on your digital assets with Nexo's high yield savings account. Treat yourself, your crypto and fiat with the industry best crypto and fiat services featuring compounding interest paid out daily, 18 available cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, stablecoins, and more. 3 fiat currencies are accepted: Euro, Pounds, and USD. Up to 375 million insurance on all custodial assets, top-ups and withdrawals available at any time, and 0 fees for using Nexo Earn Suite. Start earning at nexo.io. That's nexo.io.
All right, we're back, and I'm with Dean Tribble. Dean is the CEO and founder, I think, of Agoric, a new JavaScript-native smart contract platform. And Dean, I like to finish each podcast with a quick round of rapid-fire crypto conversation hot takes. Are you up for it?
I'm terrified. Bring it on.
All right. You don't need to be terrified, but man, you are a good talker, Dean. So please understand this is rapid fire. Just want quick, snappy answers, but do please feel free to express yourself. And look, I'm looking forward to hearing what you've got to say. Here we go. All right, Dean, where would you say you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-coin opportunist spectrum?
Bitcoin will be here forever. It'll remain huge, and it's not what most of the growth will happen in. So it's absolutely a multi-chain network, and Bitcoin is sort of an anchoring asset, but it's not where innovation is going to happen.
Makes sense to me. Okay, what would you say then, Dean, is your firmest conviction, a crypto opinion?
That we've got to enable millions of developers to build this stuff for it all to be successful.
Makes sense. All right, here's a slightly curly one, especially for a hot take question, Dean. UBI as a potential fix for, AI-induced automation, or even, a fix for wealth inequality in a dystopian future. Is UBI a good thing or a bad idea? Good idea, bad idea?
Wow. I gotta say both. It's one of those things that there's many ways it could go wrong, and there's a lot of value there. We got to do the experiment. The most important thing to me is that we try a few variations as an experiment to see what actually works, and we pay attention to what the consequences actually are, as opposed to the fantasy about what they'll be.
Very sensible, Dean. Very sensible indeed. Okay, well, sci-fi author William Gibson said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. You'll be only too very well aware of this quote. Can you think of an example of the future being here right now, Dean, but most people just aren't really aware of it?
Wow. One of my favorite stories, now this is a little bit stale, as you can imagine. A friend of mine was at the beach in their trailer, which is to say fancy camper, right? Reached over, picked up the remote to pause the CD player playing lovely music, picked up his cell phone, ordered a pizza, and calmly turned to his son and said, "I can't believe how slow it's happening, how the future is just not coming." It's like, wait a minute, you just used, sci-fi from several different dimensions, from your Dick Tracy watch to your video in order to order a pizza to be delivered to your vacation home, and you don't think the future's already here? What the heck? So yeah, yes, there are plenty of elements of the future that everyone's exposed to that they don't even realize or they take for granted. I mean, cell phones are pervasive in lots of the world, and that used to be science fiction. And so so as you said, yes, it's unevenly distributed, but an astonishing amount of it has gotten to a lot of people.
You're exactly right, Dean.
And I think, and so to me, by the way, one of the promises of blockchain, by enabling more decentralized activity, it means more decentralization of the ability to choose to get things done and to choose to cooperate. And that can result in more decentralized control, everyone having more control of their own life and more assets to be able to do what they want to do. And that's a big win. That's what I want to see in the future.
Yes, indeed. I couldn't agree more. And just to bring it back to that kind of scenario of someone pausing their music and ordering a pizza and doing everything from a little weird electronic device in the palm of their hand. So your buddy Naval, it just reminds me of a Naval tweet from yesterday. So I've just gone back and found it because he obviously has a way with words, as you'll be all too aware, but Naval said yesterday, we live in the age of wonders, but familiarity has struck us blind. And that's just another way of saying it.
That is just dead on, yes.
Exactly right. All right,
it's important for people to step back and realize when they're encountering a wonder.
Exactly right. All right, let's finish this off. Dean, time to get a little bit weird, time to zoom out. What do you see as the long-term future for the human race? Do you see dystopia or utopia?
Well, I see utopia. Well, no, I don't see utopia. I see a wonderful future because that's where I want to live. And the best way to, get to the future you want is to make it. And so that's our goal.
Very good. That's wonderfully said. All right, the final question here, Dean, on the Crypto Conversation Hot Take Round is, what is your favorite science fiction book, film, show, or universe?
In my head, I got to say Snow Crash, partly because you mentioned William Gibson.
Yeah.
And Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson. I did not like the dystopian futures of a lot of that early cyberpunk novels, and Snow Crash both did it better than a lot of the previous authors, really brought awesome new amazing technology to the bizarrest use cases, sort of in a very tongue-in-cheek style way, while still doing it better and producing a model of a hopeful future. And so I highly recommend it to anyone even now.
Absolutely, an absolute classic of the genre, cyberpunk or cypherpunk, both really. Snow Crash. All right, we'll put a link in the show notes just in case anyone has not read it, and well, you really should, or pick up the audiobook. It's all good. Right, let's finish this off. Dean, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a lot of fun. Nothing else to say really, except to hand the metaphorical microphone back to you. And please, just any closing thoughts. Tell the people where they can go to follow you on your various platforms and where they should go to learn more about what you guys are building at Agoric.
Absolutely. So go to agoric.com. That you can get to everything from there. Go to GitHub if you're a developer. Go to GitHub. Look at our bounties and get ready to build stuff. And if you want to follow me, I'm at Dean Tribble on Twitter.
Fantastic. All the best, Dean. We'll be watching with interest to see what you guys build. But it's bye for now.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for listening. That's today's show. Don't forget to subscribe to the Crypto Conversation in whatever podcast app you are using. And if you want to get at me, just drop me an email, andy@bravenewcoin.com. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave New Coin.